MD. Dr. Schwartz is a professor at the University of Miami in the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. He has 45 years of experience in the medical field. He had residency and fellowship training at the State University of New York in Stony Brook. Dr. Schwartz is the past chair of the Department of Family Medicine for over 30 years. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Family Physicians. He's the past president of the Society of Primary Care Policy Fellows. He established the Jefferson Reeves Senior Healthcare Center in Overtown. Dr. Schwartz was awarded the Healthcare Heroes Award and the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce Award. He also awarded the Jesse Trice Hero Award. Dr. Schwartz is the founder of the University of Miami's Osher Center for Integrative Health and is the director. Dr. Schwartz has a special interest in healthy aging, and he's going to be talking about it today. So, without further ado, here's Dr. Schwartz.
Thank you very much, Laura. I'm pleased to be able to give the introductory lecture for this year's series. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Wolfson Foundation for their ongoing support of the Osher Center, and especially Jerry Wolfson for decades support of complementary alternative medicine and what we now call integrative health. This is a topic which is near and dear to me. Let me see, there we go. This is who we are. The Osher Center is part of the national program, the Osher Collaborative, which is made up of 10 other centers around the country, starting first with the University of California, San Francisco, including Harvard and other prestigious academic institutions. We have originally were given a $5 million endowment, and then within the past 2 years had an additional $2 million. So this has been a very important opportunity for us to really build an integrative program here at the University of Miami. You see the pictures on the right of your screen. Teresa Glynn is our assistant director. To the right is Annette Fornos, our director of functional medicine. Anisha Durve on the left, in the middle screen is our acupuncturist. You already met Laura, who's on the right. Morgan Kidd is on the bottom left, who is our newly hired patient coach. And Emily Del Rio is our very accomplished practice manager. All right, well, why are we talking about healthy aging? Really, it's a topic that I think everybody should be interested in. And really the question is, when do you start thinking about healthy aging? Today, we're going to focus a lot on the older population, of which I am a party to. But in my clinical experience over decades, it really became apparent to me that you really need to start thinking about and doing things in order to get to a healthy age, clearly in your 30s and 40s. And I'm always surprised that it's often a difficult topic to deal with. So who are the people that are getting older? And you can see in this slide that the greater than 65 and older age group is increasing dramatically from 58 million to 82 million, which is a significant increase over time. The older population is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse, and older adults are working longer, which obviously means that as they get older, then their ability to extend their life is dependent on their ability to stay healthy. Here's a bar graph kind of just showing you that the population is increasing, and it shows from 1920 to 2020 and it really is a dramatic increase. I like this slide because it just shows this incredible increase in the population from the 1960s to a projected increase in 2060. And of course, women are living longer, but the reality is that it's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on our society. The healthcare system is not producing sufficient geriatricians, and the burden on our healthcare system in terms of how much we spend on the end-of-life care and disease-oriented problems is increasing. I don't have to tell anybody that our U.S. Healthcare expenditures are in the billions of dollars. In this slide, it just shows what percentage of people at 60 are going to live past 70 and 80, and clearly because of healthcare benefits, people are obviously living longer. But the question is, can you live longer and be healthy? I put this slide up because I think it's apparent that it's imperative that people increase their savings for old age, their ability to have housing, buy food, pay for medical insurance, et cetera, is important. The problem is that as people get older, into their 60s, 70s, 80s, and into their 90s, that are living longer, eventually their finances may very well run out, which definitely will impact their health. I put up this slide not necessarily to go into depth about the genetics of aging, but the reality is that as soon as we're born, senescence starts, and the question is that 25% of our ability to be healthy is related to our genetics. But what can we do actually to get older and stay healthy and active as much as possible? So these are the common things that most of us in primary care and integrative health are dealing with. The increase in cancer diagnosis, arthritis, mobility is a major issue that I see in my practice. Many people with joint problems, knee replacement requests, hip replacement requests. Chronic pain is a complication of the aging process and keeps people from leading healthy lives. Many people develop heart problems because of diet and nutrition, which we are going to talk about. And of course, everyone is concerned with cognitive decline and mental health issues. In my practice, I see a tremendous number of people with diabetes, and obesity, unfortunately, in our community is rampant. And I think that one of the ways of dealing with these illnesses is really healthy aging. So I put up this slide. I'm not sure that everybody in the audience can recognize the gentleman on the right, but it's Mick Jagger. And Mick Jagger is in his middle 80s, and he is still playing music, dancing on the stage, and performing. And so how is it that somebody like Mick Jagger was able to get to into his 80s and still be highly functioning, as opposed to the gentleman on the left who is in their 70s, who is in the hospital with heart disease, renal failure, and a long history of diabetes. These are two very different people getting older in our population. And the issue is how do you get to a point in old age in a healthy way? And I put sometimes it's easier said than done. And I'm saying that based on the fact that as a primary care physician, I spend a lot of my time coaching people on the things that they need to do. So some of the prerequisites of healthy aging, as I mentioned before, meeting basic financial needs. As people get older and have less and less resources, economic resources, it becomes difficult to pay for medicines, to buy food, to pay for lodging, to pay for healthcare. So those are important issues. Being able to make independent decisions, being mobile, maintaining and building relationships. Unfortunately, as we get older, we often lose family members, we often lose spouses, which contribute to difficulty with our health and our mental status. One of the things that's important, and we'll talk more about it at the end of the lecture, is having a meaningful purpose in life. I know that many people think about retiring early on in their 60s, and the truth is that it's been shown that many people, mostly men, tend to die within a year or two after they retire. Physical well-being obviously is a critical issue, and we're going to talk about that along with mental health. So I put up this slide because I don't want to go into great detail, but I do want people to realize that there are areas in the world, and they're called blue zones, and it's been popularized on NPR. And if you go on YouTube, you can actually look at some of the details. There are actually 9 blue zones in the world that have been identified. And it really goes to show that there are areas, communities that have less heart disease, have less cancer, people live longer, and they enjoy life. And in some of these areas, they live into their 90s and even into their 100s and are still active, both physically and mentally. So I encourage you to look at these 9 blue zones and look at some of the things that these communities are doing. We're going to talk about those as we go along. So healthy nutrition. Why did I put up a picture of blueberries? Well, I eat blueberries every morning. And if it was that easy to stay healthy by eating blueberries, life would be a lot easier. But unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. This slide shows, unfortunately, what the typical American diet has produced. And unfortunately, we spend very little time in medical school and medical education talking about nutrition. And the old adage of "you are what you eat" is absolutely true. And unfortunately, processed food is an important part of most Americans' diets, which contribute to heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and chronic illness. And so I think that it behooves people to really begin to take into account what they're actually eating and how they eat. I often tell my patients when I'm talking about prevention is to imagine you're in the supermarket and think about how many aisles there are dedicated to fruits and vegetables and how many aisles there are dedicated to processed foods. And most people kind of don't think about it very often, but once they start thinking, there's usually 1 or 2 aisles dedicated to what we call healthy nutrition, and a dozen aisles that are focused on packaged food, food in jars, food in cans, and mostly processed food. So these are just some examples of things. I think most people wouldn't have any problems identifying what are processed foods. And they make up part of most people's diets: breakfast cereals, sodas, juices, processed meats. And all of these things have, unfortunately, many additives in them: artificial colors, artificial flavors, a lot of sugar, a lot of salt, nitrates, preservatives, and are calorically quite dense. So this contributes to a lot of obesity, a lot of diabetes, and potentially heart disease and hypertension. And obviously, there are better options, and we're going to talk about those things. But I would imagine that, at least when I talk to patients in my practice, once you scratch the surface with patients and ask them, do you know what is a healthy diet? A lot of people do that, but sometimes it's just difficult for them to actually focus on it. This is Eat the Rainbow of Plant Foods. And again, I think if you ask people what are healthy things to eat, fruits and vegetables are clearly should be a major part of one's diet. It's important to include all of these in as many portions as you can in most meals, with varying choices, up to 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables. And you can certainly use frozen foods and frozen vegetables as long as they're good products. I added this because to some degree I'm dismayed. I live in a condo here in Miami, and I'm surprised by the number of motorbikes and deliveries that people have coming into our building of pre-prepared meals. People have because of economic issues or because of people being busy, are not cooking as much on their own. They're often eating very quickly. They're not eating with family members, and I think it's such a critical part of one's overall life balance is to be cooking together, sharing meals, etc. Not just on holidays, not just on Thanksgiving or Christmas, but realizing that that nutrition and eating in that kind of a setting is a healthy way to lead your life. So I put this slide up because I always ask patients how much bread and how much carbohydrates that they eat. It's one of those things that most people have a very difficult time giving up. But for people who are diabetic, for people who are obese and are trying to lose weight, despite the fact that semaglutide, the new wonder drug, Ozempic or Wegovy, or any of these drugs that are used to lose weight, unless you change your diet, you can't stay on medications forever in terms of weight loss or improving your metabolism. You really have to begin to avoid those things. So there's some pretty good science behind the fact that there are diets which improve health overall and longevity, and it really focuses, as I mentioned before, on fruits and vegetables, whole grains, olive oil, fish, and to some degree avoidance of meat products that are not organic. All right, so why do I mention alcohol? Well, again, alcohol is ingrained in our society, and to some degree, it's not necessarily given enough attention, except if somebody winds up with a diagnosis of being an alcoholic. And recently, the American Medical Association and other health organizations have come out and said, alcohol per se should be stopped completely. And I think that's probably unrealistic. I think it's ingrained in our society to drink alcohol. And I think most of you know that alcohol is a toxin, and it affects the liver and other organs and can lead to heart disease and kidney failure, as well as liver dysfunction. So I try and talk to people about alcohol when we're talking about prevention and healthy aging. And so reducing alcohol consumption is certainly an important way to go forward. Advising patients to look at U.S. dietary guidelines and drinking 1 or 2 drinks at the most in any single day, and not patients who don't drink, certainly don't advise them to start drinking, despite the recommendations on red wine and resveratrol. So this is really an important issue, certainly in integrative health and for the population. But supplements are just a huge issue. And I promise that I'll come back this year in our lecture series and dedicate an entire discussion on supplements. To be honest, growing up as a kid, my mother in her late 30s started buying vitamin supplements, and it was part of my kind of early exposure to her and her vitamin addiction. I I noticed that she would have 10 or 15 bottles of vitamins on the kitchen counter, and watched her in amazement as she would consume all of these vitamins on a daily basis. The interesting thing is she lived until she was 95, and when she passed away, she didn't look 95. She actually looked like she was somebody in her 60s. So early on, I realized that there must be something to it. It is $1 billion or multi-billion-dollar business in the United States, but there isn't enough scientific evidence or evidence-based research on it. So I'm hoping that as we move forward at the Osher Center, we'll be able to develop some good research programs that can actually justify the use of vitamin supplements. This is one thing that's often overlooked in primary care and recommendations to patients, and that's dental hygiene. I ask all my patients pretty much on every visit whether or not they have been to the dentist on a regular basis. There's some really good data that shows that endocarditis is often associated with periodontal disease, and heart disease in general can be related. There's some evidence that atherosclerosis and stroke might be related to poor dental hygiene, and of course, the possibility of respiratory conditions, because bacteria can penetrate through the gums into your circulatory system. Now we finally get to exercise, perhaps the most important part in healthy aging. And I've seen some amazing patient results on patients who don't exercise and get to an older age in poor condition. And some people who exercise on a regular basis, some every day, where their health conditions are dramatically improved. So the benefits of exercise, I think I went too far. Let me see if I can go backwards. Yeah. So what does exercise do for us? It reduces the risk of chronic disease. It certainly helps to lower blood pressure, improves sugar metabolism, and does reduce the incidence of heart disease and stroke. In women, it's especially important for reducing osteopenia and osteoporosis, which is bone reabsorption. It increases muscle strength and endurance, and it certainly improves sleep quality. I'm sure that most of you know that insomnia is a major issue, certainly in primary care. And unfortunately, most people want the easy way out and ask for sleep medications, but exercising has been shown to be extremely helpful. It also can reduce stress, and it improves endorphin release. So it improves mood, it enhances cognitive functioning. I think it's obvious that it improves self-esteem and confidence when people look in the mirror and see that they look more fit. There's some good evidence that it increases lifespan, and it improves weight management. One of the really important issues as people get into their 70s, 80s, and 90s is the risk of falls. And so regular exercise is really critical for people avoiding falls, or if they do fall, certainly to regain their balance. So I put this slide in because it's important to know one's limitations. I have a lot of patients who, take the advice and say, oh, okay, I'm going to start exercising. And within a week or so, they've hurt themselves. Either they've strained a muscle or strained a ligament or torn a muscle. And then that really changes their approach, and they stop or don't restart exercising. So I caution people to really start slow with exercise, especially those people that have not done exercise on a regular basis, and go slow. I also recommend to people that if they can, to work with a trainer initially, so that they can learn how to exercise in a proper way. So these are common exercise recommendations put out by national organizations: 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity, at least 2 days a week of strength training for those over 65. But I would add the comment that I don't actually agree with this in terms of balance training. I think balance training is important at any age, because the risk of falls is significant. Obviously, the barriers to activity are perceived risks of stroke and death. But this last bullet point is, I think, to some degree, the most important. It says the healthiest exercise is the one that you can do consistently. So I think that for many of these issues, especially in exercise, starting a program that you can actually like and get satisfaction out and do on a regular basis is it's probably the most critical part of the exercise prescription. So sleep is considered an important part of healthy aging, and it improves mood and well-being. It can help maintain healthy weight. It improves heart health and metabolism. It certainly can decrease the risk of falling asleep at the wheel, and it reduces stress. Unfortunately, again, many people who come into the office, at least in my practice, want the simple solution and would like to take a pill to help them sleep. And in the long run, it's something that I certainly try to avoid, and try and encourage people to do other things. And we'll talk a little bit about how to improve sleep. So I just put this up just to show people the kinds of things that I do in preventive health counseling in my practice. We talk about, obviously, nutrition, exercise. We talk about mental health issues, how to maintain an active mind, the importance of sleep, the importance of stress reduction, avoiding relying on medications. I often have patients that come into the practice that are on 10, 12 different medications, and I consider my job in integrative health and primary care is to try and see how many of these medications we can get people off of. And then, of course, it's obvious that avoiding smoking, the use of illicit drugs, and dependency issues are an issue. Volunteerism is critically important. Those people that are involved in community activities are usually healthier and have better mental health attitudes. And of course, spirituality and the observation of their own personal faith is important. And I'm hoping that later on this year, we will have a special seminar dedicated just to the impact of spirituality on people's health. So I mentioned these activities, and we're going to kind of move into the end of my presentation today, talking about social activities, community activities, volunteerism, and the very important aspect of gratitude, which has been shown to be on the list of healthy attributes. So I'm sure many of you may recognize Vivek Murthy, our prior Surgeon General, who was very interested in the effects of loneliness and isolation on heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, and premature death. And so the solutions, as you can see, are relationships, the ability to provide service, volunteerism, community activities, and again, as I mentioned before, gratitude, are all positive emotional things that affect our overall health. This is a picture I took at the Arts Center several weeks ago. And music is not often thought of as part of the healing process, and one of the pillars of well-being. But I think that there's some real beginning research now in the United States to show that music really is quite important to well-being and eventually to health. And here in our own community, we have things like the Arts Center and Music in Miami Beach. We have the Frost music program at the University of Miami. And there's so many opportunities for patients to take part in music. So there is, again, some good research that shows that emotional regulation can be enhanced by music. It improves, again, physical health, cognitive functioning, obviously, social interaction, working together, singing in choirs is an important aspect of community and working with people, and the important chemical releases that have been shown with endorphins, dopamine, oxytocin, and other hormones which produce pleasure. The yoga is important. I said it's not for everyone, but I always talk to patients about doing it. Patients have to realize that doing yoga is to some degree time intensive, and it's important to dedicate to it, but it's certainly been shown to be extremely helpful in improving different symptoms like fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and other chronic illnesses. It lessens pain, it improves memory, and it has other cardiovascular assistance as well. Oops, sorry. Radius. So yoga benefits, I think most people are aware of the improvement in strength, balance, and flexibility, pain relief, as I mentioned, increased energy, helping to manage stress, and connects with a supportive community as long as you're not doing it by yourself. So these are some of the things that we're trying to expand and do in the Osher Center. Massage, acupuncture, myofascial release, mind-body meditation, nutritional supplements, functional medicine, and integrative health. All of these things are clearly, I believe, important in expanding healthy aging. It's unfortunate that not everybody has the opportunity to experience it, but I think that as we kind of move more towards trying to establish a more holistic approach to healthcare, these things will become more obvious. So what I'd like to do now is to open it up. I think the audience that we have may have questions, and Laura will kind of vet some of the questions, and then I'm happy to answer questions that people may have about healthy aging.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz. That was a really great presentation, very informative. So we do have one question about supplements, what do you think about NAD, resveratrol, supplements like that? Do you have any, even though we're going to save the lecture on supplements for another time, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So NAD has become a popular supplement, and it's used to enhance mental function, et cetera. And as I said previously, unfortunately, there's not a lot of good research to demonstrate that NAD is something that is going to help with long-term memory or cognitive functioning. I don't have any objections for people taking it as long as there's no interaction with other medications that they're taking. And I think it presents an opportunity for us in the OSHA collaborative across the country to do research on things like NAD. As far as resveratrol goes, again, there's no contraindication to taking it, but I wish we had real evidence-based research to show that it actually makes a difference.
Okay, so there's another question about research studies for individuals to participate in. We are starting some various studies, and we will advertise those soon. Do you have any additional thoughts, Dr. Schwartz?
No, I leave that to you as research director at the OSHA Center. I leave that to you. I mean, obviously, our goal at the OSHA Center is to expand our research portfolio. In the current political climate, some of the NIH and other government agencies have slowed down or stopped some of the current research. But I'm hoping that as we expand our donor base to the OSHA Center, and as people realize that it becomes more cost effective to keep people healthy than to allow them to get sick over time, is the best financial way to deliver healthcare in the United States.
So there's a question here about programs that are offered at the OSHA Center for older individuals and employees, and how can they take advantage of those? We can also have, if you write to Emily, I'll give you her email. She can also send you written information about that. But Dr. Schwartz, do you have?
So we recently hired a patient coach, and we're planning on starting a seminar series hopefully in person for patients to come to discuss healthy aging. One of the things is that I've learned over time is that it actually needs to be individualized for patients. You can give general guidelines, but in the end, in order to create compliance and get people to do things on a routine basis, it takes a fair amount of coaching to do that. So we're hoping to start healthy aging programs. We have a mind-body program. We have a goal to create a nutrition course, and we have the opportunity to develop a cooking kitchen with the right donor over time, and expand some of the collaborative research we're doing with other departments in cardiology, in vascular surgery, and dermatology. So a lot of things are in development, and if you keep track to our website, hopefully these things will become apparent over the next year.
Right. So I have another question. So you mentioned that, Dr. Schwartz, that men die within a year of retirement sometimes. And since this person is within 5 years of entertaining that, is there any particular reason or reasons for that statistic? This is
So
somebody
again,
you know.
yeah, again, there's not a lot of data. Some of it is kind of data that's kind of spread in the community. I don't actually have exact numbers of it, but it seems to be well known that unfortunately in men who have had a very busy life in business or in their daily activity, when they retire and they haven't developed alternative activities and interests, et cetera, or if they've lost a spouse, loneliness has become a major issue, and their health seems to deteriorate rather quickly. And unfortunately, they have not done things to keep themselves healthy and active during their life. So many of these chronic illnesses can catch up on people very quickly. Dementia and Alzheimer's, I think most people understand, have increased dramatically in our population, and that often leads to early demise.
And there's some literature, there's a lot of literature about meaning and purpose and morbidity and mortality. So if you have any questions about that, email me and I will send you some literature on that as well. So, okay, so we have Natasha, who helps us with that we know, says that she's very interested in hearing about your next presentation about supplements, and she loved your talk. Just want to let you know that. Let's see what else. So there's a question about yoga and meditation being offered. I know Anisha Derbe is doing a Tuesday, Tranquil Tuesdays, probably starting up again in April for meditation. Any other thoughts about that, Dr. Schwartz?
Yeah, no, I think that, again, we're trying to expand our offerings to the community. And I think if people tune into our website, there will be announcements of new programs and new activities that are available. Also, the university as a whole has a wellness program, and there are many opportunities to do conjoint activities. So that's something that's of interest to me personally to get going for the Osher Center. And hopefully that we will have things coming up later in the year.
Great. I don't see any other questions. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand in the at the bottom of your screen or put it in the chat. Wait another minute or so. So yes, you can get a copy of the presentation. Go ahead and email either Emily or myself.
And Laura, do they have everybody's email address?
Yes, we
Yeah.
should have everybody's email address.
Great.
So we can do that. Oh, here's a question. If you've heard about pentadecenoic acid, fatty 15, somebody asked about.
I'm not aware of that particular,
Yeah,
but I'll certainly include it in my presentation on supplements later on this year.
All right, we've got a lot of people saying thank you and that this is a wonderful talk.
Great. Well, I appreciate everybody's attention, and hopefully you'll come back and listen to our Wolfson lecture series as we roll it out throughout the year. I think we have some very interesting topics that we're going to discuss. So I thank you all for your questions and your participation.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. It was great to have everybody here. And that concludes our Dr. Schwartz's presentation.
Thank you all.
Dr. Schwartz, you should look in the chat. There's a lot of thank yous.
Laura, can you hear me? I'm wondering.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi. One day you get a copy of this. This is being recorded. You said to email you. Do you have an email address that you could share with us?
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I didn't put my name next to it at the time, but I just did just now. So I apologize. Little brain issue, I guess.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. All right. See you next time.
Thank you. Excellent program.
Thanks.